And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we're talking about day number 8 of training camp for the Washington Commanders. We're also going to be talking about their most recent roster move. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And let's start with Coach Dan Quinn as he speaks to the press here before practice started. And so one of the first questions that Dan Quinn was asked, it was about Terry McLaurin. And so Dan Quinn, just paraphrasing the things he said here in this press conference, said that, look, this is normal business in the National Football League, said that he definitely supports Terry McLaurin, also talked about the fact that he loves coaching him, said that it's not a distraction. I believe he said that he was asked about that. And he also said that Terry McLaurin did come up to him before the request went public as well. And so just letting you know, Terry McLaurin letting, everybody know that. And so I think he let Dan Quinn know that. And I also saw an interview later too on the NFL Network where Jaden Daniels was also asked about it too as well. And he said the same thing. And so I think that continues to be constant here around the building. A lot of respect here for Terry McLaurin. And so once again, hoping that a deal gets done. But Dan Quinn was asked that. And so next thing he talks about is Josh Conley Jr. and then Andrew Wiley, and talking about just a rotation type of situation for them, much like how Brandon Coleman went through the rotation standpoint in his first year in the National Football League. And he was just talking about, look, competition, that is the central theme out there, And he said that the bottom line is that you have to go out there and earn it. And so if you win that job, you definitely earned it. And so that was one of the things that he mentioned here about the possibility of them kind of going into a rotation this year. Next, talking about the rookie class that the Washington Commanders have. And so just talked about how the group has just shown a lot of maturity, how they're off to a great start. And he does mention Jalen Lane. And so I think that this is something that I have mentioned really constantly, I think, around the rookies here once they've come out and spoken, is just that they sound like players that have been in the league for quite some time. And so great to hear that from Coach Dan Quinn. So the next person here that I got a chance to see that came up to the podium, this was after practice. And so this was Jeremy Reaves. And so Jeremy Reaves, much like Dan Quinn, going ahead and saying that, look, we support Terry McLaurin because he's asked about that situation as well. And so next thing here, he was talking about just really, how the defense is just like a village out there. And so he mentioned Percy Butler and everything else, some of the players that really maybe don't necessarily get highlighted as much, but really wanted to point out that, hey, man, it takes a village to kind of get things done out there. So I loved hearing that insight from Jeremy Reaves. Next thing he talks about is just that the game is slowing down. And so, he said his last season, he was trying to prove himself, new coaching staff, new management, and everything else. But this year, it has slowed down for him. And it's all about just trusting really what he sees and trusting his instincts and things like that. So sounds like that Jeremy Reaves is definitely settling in here. And then when asked about Dan Quinn, he talks about how he is a leader of men, and just really how you can always get the honest truth and feedback from him. And so loves that from Coach Dan Quinn, and just really being able to get that type of feedback. And then next, just talking about the culture and talking about the standards, and just a bunch of guys that want to go out there and win and really hold each other accountable. It's what I got out of that from Jeremy Reaves. And so once again, that was him speaking to the press after practice. And then next, Josh Conley Jr. So Josh Conley Jr., we just spoke about him. And so one of the key things that I saw with him is just that he's talking about learning. That was the biggest thing that I got out of just what Josh Conley was talking about, is learning from everyone, talking about how, that's helping him with his stance and techniques and things like that. And he's learning not just from, the offensive line, because we've been talking about this here with Laramie Tunsil, and really Laramie Tunsil taking him under his wing. But he's talking about also, too, talking with, Von Miller and some of these pass rushers, or, Dietrich Wise Jr. and guys like that, and getting some insights as to how to get better. And so, said this before with Josh Conley Jr., it seems like that he's been a huge just sponge to this situation. Is the guy that's getting acclimated here in his rookie season, doing everything that he could do there. Talked about just routines. And so now, getting into morning practices, which is something that he definitely appreciates with the morning practices. He said, back in college, he was doing evening practices and things like that, but finding that routine is something that you definitely have to do as a pro. And then also too, talking about, learning how to just really adjust to playing on the right side versus the left side. And so talking about that adjustment and just saying that he's good so far with the installs, as far as the player installs, or not player installs, but the play installs and things like that. So definitely sounding comfortable here. Josh Conley Jr. really finding his way. And so those were a couple of insights that I got here, from coach and player as well. And so now I wanted to go ahead and jump into really just some of the key standouts from today's practice here. And so first person I wanted to go ahead and start with here is Kain Medrano. And so I talked about Kain Medrano yesterday. I was like, hey, is he a starter? Could he be, a bench player, rotation? What is it going to look like? And I'm saying, I thought he would be coming off the bench and really into a rotational situation, and just really trying to figure out exactly what, he does. And so Kain Medrano had a very good day today. And so just getting a chance to read about this through Commander's Wire, if you want to go check that out. But looks like that he had a nice pass breakup today, and he also had a very nice tackle out there as well. And so it looks like that him and then also too Tyler Owens were getting some linebacker one reps from what I'm reading here. And so this is interesting because, with Kain Medrano, I'm just wondering, are they going to run him out there at linebacker? Could they possibly maybe think about moving him out there to safety and kind of playing a little bit of a hybrid position? And so something I want to see definitely with him as preseason goes along. But you continue to see, I think, just the athleticism really flash, which I think is what you saw there at UCLA, his ability to get back there and just make plays in the passing lane. But if he can be a factor, in the box, I think that really, takes his upside here in year one to another level. And so that's something to definitely take note of. And next, looking at Jaden Daniels. And so it looks like that Jaden Daniels, from what I'm reading, was sharp out there. And even on the incompletions where the defense won, you can just definitely tell that Jaden Daniels is putting the ball out there. And so I guess there were some drops and things like that, but not because Five wasn't putting it into people's hands. They just couldn't come up with the catches and things like that. But it sounds like that Jaden Daniels is showing you just how accurate he can be with the football. And also too, one of the things that is continued to be talked about with him is just how things just are slowing down, like the processing and everything else. And he actually says that on the NFL Network interview today, as they were doing, just their welcome back weekend such thing where they go around camps and stuff like that. But definitely that's something that Jaden Daniels talked about. And so once again, hearing some good things about Jaden Daniels. And so next, Luke McCaffrey. And so it looks like that Luke McCaffrey was out here making some plays today. And so from what I see here in this article, once again on Commander's Wire, it looks like that he had a good catch down the sideline. He also had a nice fade as well over Trey Amos. And then that was with Mikey Samra still blitzing here. And so Luke McCaffrey settling in here in year two. Looks like that he's definitely continuing to take the step forward. And so that was good to see. Next up, talking about the kickoff duo back here. And so it looks like that Debo and Austin Eckler were back there. Maybe that's going to be the primary kickoff returners here. And so let's see what happens with that. We definitely know Austin Eckler did some damage off the kickoffs here. I think that there is the real possibility that you could possibly see Jalen Lane out there at times too as well. But, I thought that was, pretty much standout thing to kind of bring out here to the show. And so the next thing that I wanted to talk about here is some of the injuries that happened. And so starting with Debo Samuel. And so it looks like that Debo Samuel Samuel hurt his hand on the second to last play here, so maybe kind of jam that thing, but doesn't seem like it's too much anything serious. Haven't seen any updates there. Another player that limped off the field today was Brandon Coleman, and so looks like that within that article it says that he limped off the practice. Not sure what happened. Wasn't on the sidelines. It looks like that Andrew Wiley came in for him, but Brandon Coleman limped off. You had Debo who hurt his hand. And so those were the two injuries that occurred here for the Washington Commanders. But look, all in all, I think that just the energy that I get from this is it seems like that it was a terrific practice. It seems like that the defense definitely won. And it also looks like that the offense won as well. And that's what you want when it comes down to practicing and getting ready for the season, something that Dan Quinn continues to say, and that is iron sharpens iron. And so this is another, I think, positive update here. And so hopefully, the players that we mentioned here with Debo Samuel and then also to Brandon Coleman, it's not anything serious. I'm sure we'll find something out here as they get set, for their next practice. And so keep in mind here, with this is the third padded practice here in training camp. They've got one more practice until they head out to the joint practices there. And then we have preseason football against the Patriots there on Friday. And so just a quick update. And one last thing too, Marcus Mariota back on the field. And so I know that he kind of was in a little bit of a rest situation, or how they kind of have the practices to where they kind of ramp guys up slowly or whatnot. So he was back out there doing some things. And Zach Ertz, another guy that I forgot to mention here. And so it looks like that Zach Ertz had a good day. He had a TD. And also too, I saw another thing within the article that said that, man, he looked very good coming off the ball and continued to find ways to get open. Matt Gay hit 250-plus field goals as well, so showing off the leg as a kicker. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into now the Commanders roster move here. And so if you've not got a chance to see this, it looks like that the Commanders have gone out here and they have signed wide receiver Braylon Sanders. And so he played for the DC Defenders here. And so he did play in the National Football League before this. And so he played for the DC Defenders in the UFL, played in 7 games with them. Looks like that he had 13 receptions, 332 yards, 3 touchdowns, including a 76-yarder against San Antonio there. And so with that being said, this is a guy that has played with the Miami Dolphins, spent some time on the active and the practice squad there. Looks like that he appeared in 3 games during the 2022 seasons and caught 2 passes. So 2022 season, caught 2 passes for 17 yards in week 8 against the Detroit Lions. And he spent the 2024 season on New England's practice squad as well. And so that was via commanders.com. And also to another injury update, Tyree Jackson placed on the injury list. I believe it was a back injury there. And so maybe you'll find something more about that going into tomorrow. And so with that being said, that is really the standouts here from week 8 and just also to the insights. And so you guys let me know what you guys are thinking here about this most recent signing here for the Washington Commanders. What are we thinking here about some of the injuries that we are hearing about? So Tyree Jackson on the IR. You have Brandon Coleman who limped off. Looks like that with Debo Samuel, hand injury here. And so hopefully that's not too serious. And then also two camp standouts. And so Luke McCaffrey looking pretty good. We've been hearing that from Coach Dan Quinn. Jaden Daniels looking like he is trending towards getting to another level here in year number 2. Next up, talking about Kain Medrano and then also Tyler Owens. Both of these guys getting some linebacker 1 reps as well. Then Kain Medrano showing some flashes there in the box, coming up and getting a nice little tackle. And then also to a breakup today. Next up, we got a chance to hear from Jeremy Reaves. We also got a chance to hear from Coach Dan Quinn along with Josh Conley Jr. So love to hear what you guys are thinking as far as the insights there. And so look, as we always say, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.